I want to spar. I want to spar. I'm gonna get the away from me. You know what I'm saying? They be thirsty as hell to spar. I want to spar like they're about ready to bust a nut or something. He thinks it's all about being the biggest, the largest. No, it's about being the brightest, the smartest. That guy that picked him up, you think he would have been able to do that to Francis Ngannou, Brock Lesnar, John Jones, Daniel Cormier? He can't do that to any of those guys. Come on. If you think about the heavy hitters, greatest knockout artists of all time, they were all jacked, ripped, athletic, lean. Most of them have dense, solid muscle. So muscle does matter, but again, only in tandem with skill and discipline. Yeah, he's on live with Deen the Great and Adrien Broner. It's like, brother, what are you doing? You know, now Deen the Great and Adrien Broner, they got a little Beavis and Butthead thing going on. You will never catch me on stream with a bunch of black dudes. I'm sorry, I don't like being around a bunch of black dudes. He met the broad in Dubai, bro, and you didn't get a prenup? He's like, oh, I trust her. Yo, you trust her? The famous last words of every male, I trust her. Listen, the only thing you need to trust is that a human will be a human. But it's like, man, how does Larry redeem himself? Larry Wills. Wow. Brother, where do I begin? So, it's been a very rough last several months for Larry Wills. He recently got separated from his wife. He's going through a divorce. And he also had a little experience at an MMA gym. I tell you, man, Larry Wills is kind of like the new Ashton Hall. A combination between Ashton Hall and Will Smith. He's just, everyone remembers last year Ashton Hall went through that epic fail. He flops against IShowSpeed in a foot race. And this downfall of Larry Wills is very similar. So it's like, okay, so where do I want to begin? I definitely want to talk about his separation from his wife, as well as his recent experience at an MMA gym. Larry, he's a guy, he's been a phenom his entire life. A big, strong guy. When he was younger, he was a big, strong kid, and he has utilized his gifts to his advantage. But really, Larry is a bonehead. Let's be honest. And I hate to say that because Larry, he seems like a nice guy, a genuinely good guy. And he's pretty much been isolated his entire life. And that's how it is when you're a phenom at a young age, a prodigy. You have the luxury of being isolated from the realities of life. He's delirious. He's delusional. He lives in this fantasy land. His whole life, he's growing up, being told, Larry, you're amazing, you're talented, you're big, you're strong. He's been hearing this, throughout his entire life. The biggest, the strongest, so it's got to his head. And like he surrounds himself with people who are pumping his head up. And I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with his epic fail in that MMA gym. Guys online telling them all this stuff. Wow, Larry, the biggest, the largest, that whole deal, So Larry, he let all of that shit get to his head. So Larry goes to this MMA gym, and Larry is of the mentality that, he's a big guy. He's over maybe 260 pounds. They're not moving that around. He said it. I'm 260, man. They ain't moving that. So he goes into an MMA gym and starts challenging random 145 pounds, like there's maybe 130, these guys who fight at those weight classes. He challenges them. He's tired of people saying, he can't beat these guys when he's so big, he's a large dude or whatever. So, man, they're thirsty. Let me say you this. These MMA guys, these martial artists, a lot of them do not like buff dudes. Let's be honest. They hate buff dudes. And if you're buff and athletic, forget about it. They're gonna be thirsty. And the thing is, I've dealt with this going into gyms and stuff. And I'm not a big guy. I'm not like Larry Wills, all, super huge or anything. But I'm an athletically muscular guy and stuff. So even when I go into these gyms, I get it. These guys, man, they thirsty. I deal with dudes walking up. I want to spar. I'm gonna get the fuck away from me, man. You know what I'm saying? They be thirsty as hell to spar. I want to spar like they're about ready to bust a nut or something. It's crazy. It's like, yo, my man, like, relax. I'm not on that, bro. I'm cool, And I try to be cool and respectful and nice. I compliment people and stuff just to, ease the tension, because you can read the room. If you're aware enough, you should be able to read a room, and you can tell, you can see the eyeballs on you when you're a fit, muscular person. But when you go in there talking shit like Larry, man, he went in there basically saying, oh, he's stronger, he's bigger, these guys ain't gonna, man, when you're talking all that kind of shit, oh yeah, they're gonna be thirsty. They're gonna be thirsty to make an example out of you. And that's what happened. That's what happened. These guys, well, first he grappled a girl, and she was hanging in there. Now, she didn't submit him, but she was doing all right. Then he grapples another guy. Boom, guillotines him like in less than, 30 seconds. And Larry's like, oh, man, he's salty already. Then another guy's running up. I think it was two other guys, thirsty. I want to grapple. These guys, I'm telling you, they do not like buff dudes, especially if you're going in there talking shit. So really, I'm on the MMA guys' side in this situation because Larry started it. He did. He went in there talking smack. Like if he was humble and stuff and they just wanted, go in there and, throw them around and stuff, I feel like they're assholes, You see toxicity on both sides. You see toxicity on the meathead side. You also see toxicity on the martial artist side. But in this situation, the meathead started. So I'm on the martial artist side. So he grabs this another guy. Bam, pushes Larry to the fence, holds him down, like nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing. And then, boom, hoists him up, picks him up, swings him around, pulls a helicopter on his hand, bam, drops him, pulls that helicopter straight on his ass, boom. Man, it was bad, bro. It was bad, bro. And I said, Larry, he had it coming. And like I said, you got to be careful. These MMA gyms and stuff, they already don't like fit guys and stuff. And, they're of the mentality of, and guys, like I said, God forbid if you're muscular and stuff like that, forget about it. A lot of these guys, and when I say they hate guys with muscles, that's why when I go into a gym, I scope the room out. And if I don't see any really fit, athletic looking dudes or whatever, people in there, I don't spar, I don't mess with that gym like that. Because it tells me this is a hating ass gym. That's what it is. So a lot of these guys, they have the mentality of if you don't look like, I don't know, Tyson Fury or Fedor Emelianenko, you can't fight. They don't want to see a muscular guy being able to fight in any way. When I say they hate muscles, it's not just like the big bodybuilder type guys like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler and Larry Wills. They hate just functionally muscular people. On any sort of lean physique, they hate it. Like a Jose Aldo, like a Deontay Wilder. These guys, they're not crazy bodybuilder looking, but they have muscles. They're fit, And again, like these guys, they have a complex and they're quick. They're quick to want to tell you muscles don't mean shit. I've been hearing that shit my whole life. A lot of guys, they thirsty to want to tell you muscles don't mean shit. Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's why we're in there to learn. And that's why they're in there to learn. But I'm going to say this, and they're not going to like this. Muscles do mean a lot when muscles has skill. Like Larry, he was like, man, weight classes exist for a reason. And that's true. That's true. But Larry has a very myopic outlook on a lot of things. Yeah, weight classes exist for a reason only when you have two fighters that know how to fight. When you have two skilled fighters, the bigger, stronger fighter is going to win. That's why weight classes exist. But Larry, once again, very simple-minded. He doesn't understand that. And it's a shame because now, he has a whole bunch of people under his comments basically clowning him, laughing at him. Guys that Larry would most likely beat the fuck out of, they're laughing at him all in his comments. Let's be real, man. Let's be honest. The average guy, Larry Wills, would beat the fuck up. Let's be honest. The guys that he was rolling with, those are exceptional guys. They're pros. All they do is that. So now, it's a good thing that this happened to Larry, but it's kind of a bad thing this happened to Larry because now you have a whole bunch of simpletons basically saying, see, size don't matter, muscles don't matter. Like, whoa, man. Keep things in perspective. Larry will still beat the fuck out of the average guy, especially a lot of the motherfuckers talking shit under his comments. You know what I mean? So it's like that. So when I hear guys say muscles don't mean anything, get real. Muscles mean a lot, only in tandem with skill and discipline. Muscles do mean a lot, but only when muscles have skill and discipline. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, if you look at the majority of the best fighters that have ever walked this planet. Top level, cream of the crop. Most of them were muscular. They were jacked. You know what I'm saying? Again, I'm not talking about like a Ronnie Coleman, so crazy, buffed out of that. Like, that's ridiculous. Okay, not that. But I'm talking about, okay, let's run down the left. Mike Tyson, jacked. I'm saying Jose Aldo, muscular, jacked. Matt Hughes in his prime, jacked, boy. All these Deontay Wilder, jacked. GSP, muscles. Brock Lesnar, muscles. You know what I mean? You can go down the list of all of the highest level fighters. They're all jacked. They were jacked. Islam Makhachev, I just botched his last name, but you know what I'm talking about. Islam, the champ. Look, if you ever seen Islam's back, go Google Islam's back. Ripped, jacked. You know what I mean? So muscles do matter. There are more muscular people, and I say, of course, you're gonna have exceptions. You have, like, for example, Fedor Emelianenko is like one of the only guys I can think very few I can think of that had his physique that was high level. Like Fedor, not a muscle in sight, not a striation, not a vein in sight. Fedor is whooping ass. One of my favorite fighters of all time. So Fedor, you have him. Butterbean. Butterbean was a fat dude, he was knocking cats out. Butterbean was a pretty good boxer. Tyson Fury is a good boxer. So you got some. BJ Penn was another one. Without BJ, forget about it. It's rare. And, VJ was also one of those guys. He hated the muscle guys, too. He's made comments about that. But BJ, he ended up losing and stuff, too. But he was a pretty good fighter in his prime, and he was known for having some power. But these guys are anomalies. If you think about the heavy hitters, greatest knockout artists of all time, they were all jacked, man. The best boxers, Floyd Mayweather's ripped, athletic, lean. Most of them have dense, solid muscle. So muscle does matter. But again, only in tandem with skill and discipline. It ties into, that phrase, hard work beats talent. When talent refuses to work hard. But the same thing, it goes for muscles as well. Muscles, not having muscles beats muscles when muscles refuses to work hard. When muscles refuses to train and stuff. But when muscles applies itself, oh, holy cow. It's the truth. It's the real deal. So you got a lot of guys that want to hate on people with muscles and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is there are way more fighters, high-level fighters that are jacked and have muscles that are athletic than not. Look at it in a way to kind of further exhaust the point. Look at Royce Gracie. Now, when Royce Gracie hit the scene, they had the jiu-jitsu. They had all the skills in their pockets. Like, nobody knew what was going on. Like, these guys had, magic trick, voodoo and shit. Like, how are they doing this? They're submitting all of these big old dudes and buff dudes and stuff. But once the big buff dudes started learning the jiu-jitsu, you saw what happened. Because you think about it, man. Look at skinny-ass, weak-ass Royce Gracie. The only way he was able to pull that off, the only reason he was able to pull that off is because nobody knew what the hell he was doing. He had the secrets, the magic tricks in his magical hat and shit. But once the buff dude started learning, when he fought Matt Hughes manhandled his ass. Matt Hughes manhandled him. Didn't even use much technique, just used that farmer strength. You understand what I'm getting at, So, he had that farmer strength. And I know I'm exhausting the point here, but, size and all of that stuff, it does matter. It really does, but only when you're training. Now, the thing about Larry Wills is I'm rooting for Larry because now he's obviously been humiliated. He's salty about it. And I'm sure when he applies himself and learns the techniques, he'll be smacking around the average fighter. Or not even want to say average fighter, but the average guy, the average Joe. He can do it now just from being as goddamn big as he is. He can beat up most guys just off size alone. You guys got to understand what those guys did to him. The average guy, that guy that picked him up, you think he would have been able to do that to Francis Ngannou, Brock Lesnar? Come on. John Jones, Daniel Cormier, he wasn't going to do that to you. He can't do that to any of those guys. Come on. So he did that because Larry doesn't know how to utilize his size to his advantage. He doesn't know how to utilize it as leverage. So really, I wasn't impressed, to be honest with you. And anybody that has trained for enough, you know that was pretty much going to be the outcome. So it's not that impressive. Okay, a guy that trains all the time, grapples all the time, is able to beat a guy that doesn't. You know, Larry is just pure size and muscle with no technique or skill. So, duh, he didn't even know how to stop, utilize his leverage. I know I'm going around in circles, but you get my drift. And it's, sucks for Larry because it's like, how does he redeem himself? How does he do it? Because when Ashton Hall, when he lost to ice show speed, it sucked for him, he sucked. But if you think about it, Ashton Hall has many ways to kind of redeem himself. I don't know if he can beat speed in a race, but Ashton Hall can always say, well, I can lift more weights than speed, or maybe I can beat him in a fight. I'm not personally, I think speed probably even beat Ashton in a fight, but the mystique is still there. The mystery is still there. We don't know. We don't really know. So there are many ways Ashton can redeem himself, but it's like, man, how does Larry redeem himself? How does Larry do it? You know what I'm saying? What is he going to do? Try to fight them? Because the amount of time is going to take Larry to bridge that gap between his inexperience and their experience. Man, it's going to take forever, And even with him being as big as he is, I don't think the size will be able to kind of cancel out whatever technique they have. If Larry learns a little bit of technique. So like Larry, he can learn a certain amount of technique and then hope that his size will be enough to overcome them. And maybe there's a possibility that could happen, but I don't see it. But I don't know. It's such a spectrum. There's a lot of nuance to the topic. It's not just black or white. It's not just, oh, big guy wins all the time. And it's not just, oh, the skilled martial artist that small wins. It's a spectrum. You never really know. Because look, you guys remember, I'm looking at this mic. I shot this video already, but I had the fucking mic upside down, man. Speaking of boneheads, right? I call Larry a bonehead. Well, there's your bonehead for you. I had the mic upside down. So I had to shoot the shit again. But, you guys remember when Dustin Poirier, he grappled, was it Eddie Hall? It was some big strongman dude. Now, Dustin Poirier, this guy was way bigger than Larry, the guy that Dustin Poirier grappled. And he was able to submit Dustin. I think he just laid on him. But after a while, when you have a guy that's really big and that size does become a factor. Pause. And another thing, so I don't know, man. You just gotta don't look at it so myopically. But in terms of Larry, what does he do to redeem himself, man? Because guys, and I don't think this way, but most guys, they have the mentality of winning a fight is the ultimate victory. That's how most guys think. Now, I don't think that way. A lot of guys, they have this mentality, well, a man should know how to fight, and if you can't protect yourself and all this shit, man, I don't think a person's manhood, and I don't like really think like this, should be determined by whether or not they can win a fight or how many people they can beat in a fight. But this is how most guys think. So taking into consideration how most guys think, winning a fight is considered the ultimate victory. So what is Larry going to do to redeem himself? What's he going to say? Oh, you choked me out, but I can out bench press you. So what? I kicked your ass. Yeah, well, I beat you in the fruit ways. So what? I kicked your ass. Well, I'll beat him in chest. So what? I kicked your ass, boy. That's how they're looking at it. You know what I mean? That's how they're looking at it. So, and it's like, unless this was like legitimate warfare, then obviously the ultimate victory would just be to kill the motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? But like, this isn't warfare, this isn't that serious. Larry just went in there, challenged them to a friendly, match, and then he lost. So, it'd be kind of crazy to try to take it to the extreme of trying to kill somebody, but you guys get my point. Unless it's like all out warfare where you have a serious problem with someone, then you got to try to take them out completely. There is no other ultimate form of victory other than to win a fight. That's how a lot of guys think. So, man, and like, so I don't see him. I don't know, man. Larry, I think he needed this to happen to him just to, open his mind that it takes more than size, and there's this big thing nowadays about victim weight. I see videos about guys talking about if you're under 200 pounds, your victim weight, this and that. Let me tell you something about victim weight. Victim weight is only relevant if you're able to victimize somebody. Victim weight is irrelevant if you're not in the position to capitalize on another person's victim weight. You got to be in the position to utilize your advantage. That's like a lion telling an eagle the eagle is victim weight. What the fuck is a lion to an eagle? The eagle fly high in the sky, then what? Or that's like a lion telling a piranha the piranha is victim weight. Hey, go in the water, see what happened. If that lion gets caught in the water, that little tiny piranha, it eat it alive. So everything is relative to environment and circumstance. You got to be in the position or the environment to utilize whatever advantages you think you have. So this concept of victim weight is irrelevant if I don't allow you to utilize the advantage. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these guys, they talk about knowing how to fight is important and this and that. Knowing how to fight only matters if the other person is stupid enough to try to fight you. You know what I'm saying? That's how it is. I mean, okay, I saw, I don't know how long ago this was, maybe a few years ago. It was a fighter by the name of Joe Schilling. Now, Joe Schilling is a Muay Thai fighter, a very tough looking dude. And there was a viral clip of him knocking some drunk guy out. Now, again, Joe Schilling is a Muay Thai fighter, very tough looking dude. Not the type of guy, people would look at and be like, man, I think I kick his ass. I wouldn't advise somebody to just walk up to Joe Schilling and try to fight him. But if a guy's going to be stupid enough to walk up to Joe Schilling, that's most likely what's going to happen. They're going to get knocked the hell out. That's like if I walked up to Alex Pereira and tried to fight him. I'm going to get my ass whooped. So he can only do that if I'm stupid enough to try to fight him head on, one-on-one. So me and a lot of guys don't think like this. My mentality is when I walk into the room, any room, I automatically assume I'm the weakest guy in the room. I automatically assume I'm the biggest pussy in the room, the biggest bitch in the room. Now, some of y'all may be thinking, what the fuck is wrong with you? But you got to think, this is what keeps my mind sharp. This is what keeps me 10 steps ahead of the game. You know what I mean? Because you guys got to realize, you'd be surprised how many fights you can win without even having to fight. You got to have the mentality of getting this person before it even becomes a fight. Read the room. Eye contact, body language. Most fights, you can usually tell if a motherfucker wants to fight you long before it even becomes a fight. They give you dirty looks, mean mugging you, So I'm of the mentality of, man, if I'm not getting paid for it, if I'm not winning a trophy, I ain't fighting. I'm not fighting. Now, unless somebody just randomly puts their hands on me and obviously I got to do something. Otherwise, I'm of the philosophy fighting without fighting. Like Bruce Lee said, the art of fighting without fighting, I'll get you before it even becomes a fight. Because really, all of this back and forth, it's a stupid debate and argument. Well, muscles mean everything. No, knowing how to fight means everything. No, man, really, it's a game of who gets who first and who gets who last. That's what it is. So I just want to say that. Listen, if you know how to fight, fine. I'm not down. I think earlier I said fighting is irrelevant. I mean, it's not completely irrelevant. I broke down scenarios in which it can be relevant. Like if a person is stupid enough to try to fight you, okay, if you know how to fight a little bit, you might most likely beat the person up. But it's irrelevant if a person is not dumb enough to try to fight you. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Larry, man, he thinks it's all about being the biggest, the largest. No, it's about being the brightest, the smartest. And that's what it's about being, man. So, hopefully, like I said, I'm rooting for Larry, but it's bad for him, man, because now he's going through the thing with his wife. Holy cow, man. And he's just online being clowned. The whole world is laughing at Larry. They're laughing at this man. And the lessons that he's having to learn online in front of millions and millions to see and mock him, he could have learned these lessons a long time ago. These are lessons you can learn in high school. Learning, understanding the concept of being careful of who you trust, who you let into your circle, who you date. Watch your friends closely, or so-called friends closely. These are lessons people, and this is why I don't think it's good for people to get really famous at such a young age, because you don't usually learn your life. If you look at most people who are really successful at a young age, they take major flops and L's later on in life because they haven't learned brutal lessons they should have learned living normal lives. When you live a normal life, you understand that you can't trust people. You know what it's like to go into work, having people gossiping about you, talking about you, laughing at you, sizing you up, clicking up on you, ganging up on you, waiting for one moment for you to slip, so just that they can capitalize on it, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, whether it's at just so many other places. But when you're isolated from reality and just living high in the sky and just successful forever, you don't understand these things because everyone's just gonna be nice to you. You're just seeing people on their best behavior. But a lot of people, like for example, Deontay Wilder, he had to deal with this with his ex. I don't know. I might have to close that window. I'm seeing the light kind of shining on my legs. I'm gonna keep it rolling. But he's dealt with this with his ex. He was winning. Deontay knocking everybody out. The bronze bomber. You know what I mean? But then once he started losing, the broad bounced. She bounced. You know, now Deontay, these are guys, they should have learned these lessons early on in life, how to vet people and stuff. These are lessons you can learn as early as high school, man. But they're learning it. It's ridiculous. And all this streaming stuff, and Larry, he's going back and forth, and his wife's clowning him and stuff like that. And now he's on live with Deen the Great and Adrien Broner. It's like, brother, what are you doing? You're hanging around these monkeys, you know. Now Deen the Great and Adrien Broner, they got a little Beavis and Butthead thing going on. Ren and Stimpy, add Rampage, make it the three fucking stooges. You run around a bunch of hoodlum black dudes. That's how they are. Like, let me tell you something, man. You will never catch me on stream with a bunch of black dudes. I'm sorry. I don't like being around a bunch of black dudes. For, Exhibit A. Exhibit A, man. That's how they are. That's how most black dudes behave. That's how they act. Now, I want to be careful because, I know there are some black guys that watch my channel and they like my channel. And I definitely want to be open to exceptions. I know exceptions are out there, but at the same time, I have to, be honest about the pattern recognition, man. I don't like being around a bunch of black dudes. Because you're always going to have to fight them. They always, trying to clown you, catch you slipping, all of this stuff, man. Deen the Great, Adrien Broner, Rampage. That's how these are the typical black guys in a nutshell. And they're black guys who got a little bit of fame and success, and but that hoodlum shit is still in them. They're like goddamn monkeys, man. Really. You know what I'm saying? I fucking hate monkeys, man. I feel like Frieza. Fucking monkeys, I feel like fucking Frieza. I hate monkeys, dude. And like Larry, he's trying to rationalize with these guys, being a nice guy and stuff. What the fuck you gonna say? They don't speak the language you speak. And what you gonna say to them? Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, ting, walla, walla, bing, bang. They don't speak human languages. You know what I'm saying? They don't speak human language. It's like, I don't know, man. And when I say monkeys, man, I want to clarify this. White people can act like monkeys. Asian people can act like monkeys. Hispanics can act like, I'm not, because I'm not trying to make it seem like the racial thing or whatever. I'm focused on behavior. They're acting like just idiots, man. So obviously people of any race can act like monkeys. It's just, unfortunately, it's much more common amongst the hoodlum black guys like this, And so I got to acknowledge the pattern or the patterns, But as far as Larry Wilson's wife, man, he met her in Dubai, man. He met the broad in Dubai, bro. Dubai, like, Larry, what are you, stupid, bro? Like, you didn't get a prenup? He's like, well, I trust her. Yo, you trust her? I trust her? The famous last words of every male, I trust her. Bro, you always get that prenup, bro. What are you doing, man? Listen, the only thing you need to trust is that a human will be a human. That's the only thing you need to trust. And humans, you have to trust the fact that most humans are not trustworthy. That's what it is. Anything can happen, man. She can just all of a sudden go crazy, lose her mind, get some crazy mental illness and forget who you are and say she wants a divorce. So you always got to, cover your ass, man. You should never trust anybody to that extreme. You know what I'm saying? Did anybody say, I wouldn't trust any woman to that extreme. The only woman I trust, as far as like, signing my life away, giving assets to and stuff like that is my mother. That's the only woman I would ever trust and love that much, But, and I know some guys, they don't have, or maybe if you have a daughter you love, your daughters and stuff. But like, apart from mothers and stuff, most guys, assuming you had a good mother, because I understand there are a lot of guys out here who don't have good mothers as well. But assuming you did have a decent mother and she did the job right, that's how most guys feel about their mothers, man. You know, that's pretty much the only woman most guys will love to that extreme and trust to that extreme. Apart from that, get real, man. Always be on your P's and Q's out here. You know, even like I said, Dubai, and like I always wonder when I see guys dating women like this, it's like, what do you even talk about? Because dating somebody like that, you got to do everything. You got to make the money. You got to do the fighting. You got to do this. You got to be fixing shit and like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But me personally, I'm of the mentality of, I want a lioness. I don't want a trophy wife. I want a lioness. Because you have guys, human males, they love to compare themselves to lions. You know, lions, king of the jungle, man. We dominant alpha, all this dumb shit. We got to think about it. Female lions also exist as well. And female lions are active. Yeah, they're loving, they're nurturing, they'll take care of the kids, but they're also fierce. You know, they're strong. They'll stand up and take action. They're just not going to sit on the sidelines. And sometimes they do when certain fights break out. But if you notice, you study lion behavior, female lions, they'll jump in. If a male intruder comes in, they'll attack that male intruder, you know? So when I look at women like Larry Wills, they're just lumps on the laws. They won't do anything. You know, me personally, I wouldn't deal with any woman, whether it's dating or friendship, that isn't willing to get in the mix. Like, for example, if I'm okay, for example, I'm not saying a woman just always have to be the first one on deck to try to fight someone and fix it and shit and all that stuff. But if I'm in a situation where I'm in a fight and I'm getting my ass whooped, yeah, I would want a woman that's willing to step in, maybe kick this motherfucker in the nuts, bite him, stab him, you know, throw boiling hot water on him, something. You know, I don't deal with divas. You know what I mean? I don't deal with girly girls and stuff, and there's nothing wrong. You know, okay, there's nuance to everything. It's like human males are, the human species is the only species that does this. The human species acts like masculinity and femininity are mutually exclusive. And I hate to even use those words. I like to use the words yin and yang. I prefer those words because when guys hear masculine and feminine, they automatically think male, female, man, woman. But it's not about man and woman. It's about two different energies. All right. And as a human being, you need them both. You need them both. There's nuance. Most traits are not masculine or feminine, or, you know, they're neutral. You know, these are human traits. A woman can be loving. She can be nurturing. She can be sexy, but she can also be a fighter. She can be a warrior. She can be dangerous. She can be aggressive. It's all context. All context. I mean, if you have great examples of female fighters out here who they can be sexy, dress up, but they can also kick a little bit of ass. You know, I like being around women who are willing to learn how to do construction, maybe fix a tire, wire a circuit. You know, women that you can rock climb with, you can go to kickboxing with, you know, you can climb mountains with, you know, women you can do stuff with. I look at guys like, girls, women like Larry Wills' wife. I'm like, what the fuck do they even do? Like the Kardashian types. Like, what do you guys even talk about? There's only so many hours of the day. You can't have sex 24/7. So when you're not having sex, what the hell are y'all even talking about? You know, there's only so long, because most women like that, all they want to do is talk about their makeup and who's in a relationship with who. Man, that's irritating, man. I don't even like being around women like that. So, you know, I prefer lionesses, you know, a fierce, strong woman, you know, but a woman like Larry's wife, man, you always going to have to be the one. And the thing is, it goes back to what I was trying to talk about earlier. When you're a person that builds your image off of, you know, being the biggest, the largest, pause, you know, the strongest, the most masculine, making the most money. You know, this red pill content has a lot of guys' heads messed up. It really does, because they're telling guys that the only way you can find a woman is to be very tall, very strong, have lots of muscles, lots of money. The problem with that, if any of that stuff falls through, or if a woman sees another guy has more of that, she'll just bounce on you. She'll just bounce on you. And I'm pretty sure all of the trolling and stuff and being humiliated, that has been a factor behind why his wife left him. Now, Larry, he's still very successful as far as money, but his reputation has taken a major hit. It's taking a major hit. Now, hold on, man. I'm gonna close this. I close one and now more light starts shining through. I better wrap this up before all the lights start beaming in my face. Right now it's this down here. But yeah, Larry, he's taken a huge hit as far as his reputation, but he still has money. But the thing about like women like that is even if you have a lot of money, sometimes a huge blow to the reputation can kind of like cancel all of that out. Like even if you have a lot of money, if you're just being clown and stuff like that, sometimes the money ain't even worth it because the way she's looking at it is like, yeah, she can find somebody else that has just as much money that isn't being completely clowned and humiliated and stuff. So she probably bounced on him for that reason. And like, I don't know, man. Larry, he's probably just one of those guys. He's into that, being humiliated. Some guys are into that shit, man. Some guys, they love mean, cruel women, like brutal, just humiliate them. Some guys are into that shit. Like Akash Singh from last year. You remember that Indian guy? His wife. Now, his wife is way worse because she's just blunt. Oh, she's worse than Larry Wills's. Like, Larry Wills's wife, she has an air of trying to at least come off as nice with it. Sometimes a lot of it's backhanded. But Akash Singh's wife, man, she's blunt, open, rude about it, But, yeah, man, when you build a reputation off of just being the strongest and all that other stuff, you end up like this, man, because it just takes one fall for them to just bounce on you. Like that. I always say, I don't ever want any woman to be attracted to just come on to me purely because of looks, all that other stuff. You got to ask yourself, why are they into you? Are they into you because you're really muscular, man? There's a bunch of buff dudes out here. There are a bunch of dudes that can whoop my ass. So I wouldn't want to deal with a woman who's with me just because she thinks I can beat everybody up. I can't beat everybody up. So in a situation where I might get fucked up in a fight, what is it going to be? You going to just bounce on me and go with the other guy? Or are you going to stick around and say, baby, how we getting this motherfucker? How we getting them back? You need to really tap into a woman's spirit, a woman's soul. All the muscles, the money and stuff. And now online, there was a video. There's a video of her saying she wouldn't have gotten with Larry if he was a brokey or whatnot. And to an extent, I understand that thinking, especially if you're a woman that's, getting a little older or whatever and stuff. Because, after a while, I guess at a certain point, you just want to deal with someone who has some sort of stability. However, I also think women should be able to decipher between potential and a lost cause. You have a lot of guys out here who do have potential. They have the skill set. They have the credentials. They're just having a tough time putting it all together to get something from the ground up or just to get something going. Then you have guys who are a lost cause. Maybe they're just selling drugs in and out of prison, don't have any actual skills. Then, okay, yeah, why waste your time with somebody like that? But with a guy that has that potential, he has the skill set and you see it, I don't see nothing wrong with, kind of taking the chance with him. Even if he doesn't have a bunch of money right out of the gates, that's why I say it's better to, like, I can see if he met this woman when he was working, they both were working like normal jobs, humble, maybe a warehouse or something, There's nothing wrong with working with a warehouse, but you get my point. These aren't considered like high profile, making a lot of money type of jobs and stuff, usually. And you all grow together under circumstances like that. Or maybe he was in school and he finished school. He's just trying to get something going that way. So I think women need to learn how to decipher between potential and a lost cause, But to just want to deal with a guy who's just super rich right out of the gates, he got millions of dollars, that's a red flag, man. That's a huge red flag, brother, seriously. And there's enough content to let you know. But again, when there's so much content as well telling guys, you got to be the richest, you got to be the biggest. You got to, you just set yourself up for failure, man. Because I know myself, unless it's got to be based on a genuine, deep connection. Because if it's not, your wife, your girl is up for grabs. Anybody got a shot, anybody's got a shot. And it's like a lot of guys don't realize this. And this is actually a good thing about women and a bad thing about women. It's like a double-edged sword. is women, if you really do tap into their spirits and their souls, they will like usually ride for you no matter what. If you look at like prisoners and stuff, right? Serial killers, these guys in their death row and stuff, they got like mad groupies, women sending them love letters, wanting to marry them, stuff. These guys can't do anything for women like this. They can't do anything for them. There you go. They pull in women, because these guys, for whatever reason, they tapped into something inside of these women. These guys don't have a bunch of money and stuff like that. So this is one of the good things about women is they're more receptive to a connection. If you can get that connection, whereas guys, they tend to be a lot more superficial. But there are women out here who are very superficial as well. You have the gold diggers like a Larry Wills' wife and stuff like that. But you just got to try to find the ones that are not superficial and that are more receptive to. And like I said, it's a double-edged sword, because that's also a bad thing about women is like they will be open to some of the shittiest guys out there as long as those guys make them feel a certain way. So that's also a bad thing about women. But I don't want to throw women under the bus either, because men, they have their shitty flaws as well. Men, they look at a lot of women as objects, and they're just out here. These guys are just out here, destroying the planet too. So I'm not trying to say, the females and males, they both play a role in just the overall destruction of society and humanity. But I'm just talking about the female side in this particular case. But you get my point here. But if you're a good guy that wants something genuine, like Larry seems like a good guy, man, you got to get that connection. You got to stop flaunting all your assets. But Larry Wills, he seems like a good guy. I'm rooting for him. I really am. I'm rooting for him. But, man, he's got to be careful about who he streams with. He like Deen the Great, Adrien, Broner. Are you kidding me? Larry, he stepped to Adrien. It's like, oh, you said you do something with my wife, and Adrien is playing stupid. Talking about, I don't know your wife and stuff. Like, you really need to know somebody's wife to say something disrespectful about their wife. You could just say something random about anybody's wife walking the streets. You don't need to know them in order to do that. But again, these are the type of mentalities you are dealing with. These are not human beings. They don't speak human languages. Don't even waste your time, Larry. Don't even waste your time. And that's pretty much all I want to say on this topic. Watch the company that you keep, man. Watch the company that you keep. Do not devour all of this content telling you to be the biggest dude, have the biggest muscles, and have the most money, and you're just setting yourself up for failure. Focus on a genuine connection, and focus on just having good people around you, and don't set yourself up for failure. Be self-aware. Like I said, Larry, bro, you walked into an MMA gym talking that, oh, I'm bigger and strong and shit. You were asking for it, bro. You were asking for it. And it sucks for him, but I think Larry would be all right. He'd be all right. He'll bounce back. And now he's gotten into MMA, and he's eager, man. Like Larry, we've seen it. He catches on to things really fast, man. He's a very naturally, physically gifted, talented guy. He arm wrestling, powerlifter, and all this stuff. He got knocked out in the slap box and stuff. He wasn't so good with slap boxing, but yeah, man, he's a game guy, and I'm rooting for him. I just finished this by saying, watch the company that you keep. On that note, later. Catch you later.